We hustle, God provides. We hustle, God provides. This is something we've talked about a good bit. I wanted to zoom in a little bit on certain aspects of it. This truism was coined by Laura Jones, I believe. Laura, you came up with it just at the end of staff stink one day. And we've loved it and used it ever since. Typically, when we talk about this, it's to explain how God is in control of the outputs. It's we work hard, but ultimately God is in charge, and he's the decisive one that brings the fruitfulness. And this is correct, 100% accurate, wonderful. We need to hear it. But in my opinion, I think we actually gloss over the first part of this truism, the we hustle part. And so I wanted to camp there for just a moment. In college, I had a group of friends. We went to Waffle House, and there was a waitress there, obviously. And she said, "What do you guys want to drink?" Everybody did their drink orders. One of our friends said, "I could really go for a Pib Extra." And she said, "Well, we don't have Pib Extra." And he said, "Man, I'm disappointed. Had a tough day. It's my favorite. Would have loved to have it. That's all right, though. I'll have Dr. Pepper." So she left and took a little bit too long, then came back, gave us the drinks, and she put a glass with some ice in it in front of my friend and a 20-ounce bottle of Pib Extra and just poured it for him. And, of course, he was blown away, so excited. He said, "I thought you didn't have any Pib Extra. This is amazing. Thank you so much." And she said, "Well, I didn't have a lot of tables, so there was a convenience store next door. I knew how much it would mean to you, so I went next door to the convenience store, got a Pib Extra, just because I knew it would make your day." Everybody was blown away by this. This character, I mean, this girl, this is hustling, absolutely. And she probably knew that we were going to tip her well because of it, which is fine. She exemplified amazing performance. She hustled. And what I want you to understand is hustling does not just mean hard work. It's something different than hard work. When J.R. Smith gets that rebound over Kevin Durant, and he runs as fast as he can to the sideline, nobody is saying, "Look at that hustle, J.R. Well done, lightning quickness." And there's a reason why, because hustling isn't just working hard. It's also working smart. Yes, it did hurt. Brent is right. We don't have time. A resident told me he was up till 3 a.m. working on Midtown work. And I actually did not commend him in that moment. I actually gave him some brutal honesty because I said, "That's not hustle." I said, "That's irresponsibility because he used his daylight wrong." I don't know what he did during the day, but whatever he used his work hours for over what he did at 3 a.m., that was so important, that needed to get done, that he needed to stay up that late and do it. I said, "That's wrong." So he didn't get commended for it because that's not hustling. It may be working hard, but it's just not working smart. It shows a lack of discernment and ability to prioritize well. Another example, a few years ago, I had a guy in my church, in our church. It is mine. It's ours. It's we, y'all. Okay. Guy in our church needed to make some extra money, and he said, offered to do yard service for me. And I said, "Of course, okay, no problem. Just give me a quote." He said, $25 per time. I said, "That's too cheap. That's half as much as everybody else. Just keep your hours. I'll pay you $10 an hour. Keep up with your hours, and I'll pay you for it." Because I didn't want to undercut him. So he kept up with his hours, and he came 3 times and did a fine job, used my tools, whatever. But one thing he never did was he never edged my driveway or my walkway. And so what was starting to happen over time, like the clumps of grass fingers were just like spreading across all of my cement walkways and driveway. And I told him on the 4th time he came out, I said, "You cannot leave until you edge all of the driveway and walkway. It doesn't look good. You got to do it today." So he came in the morning. It was like 9 a.m. It was before work. I told him this. Went to work. He called probably about noon. He says, "Hey, how do I edge a driveway?" And I said, "Okay, no problem. I've got a weed eater in the barn. It's got, line in it. I just replaced it." I said, "What you'll do, you'll turn it on, put it on its side, and just make a straight line across the edge of the driveway." He said, "Okay," hung up the phone, didn't hear from him again. 5 o'clock rolls around. I was getting home. I pull into the driveway, and I see him on his hands and knees pulling with his bare hands the little clumps of grass out of the side of my path. And I saw, all the work that he had been doing, it looked like a very unskilled bear was just clawing at my side of my yard. Got out of the car. I was like, what? What are you doing? Why are you using your bare hands? He said, because the scissors that I bought today for this didn't work. The grass was too thick. I said, why aren't you using the weed eater? He said, because it's broken. I picked it up, turned it right on, flipped it on the side. I, finished the line that he was on in, a matter of seconds. More appropriately, could have been measured in milliseconds. And it dawned on me, he had been there all day. He's on the clock. And so I just needed a second. I was like, okay, I need to go inside. And so he finished up with the weed eater, finished up the rest of it in milliseconds. And I wrote the check, talked to Meg about it, and I was like, I gotta give this guy $100 right now because he's been here all day long. So I came out, $100 check, and I was like, listen, man, thank you so much. This will be the last time. I can't afford you. You're too high end for me. I'm gonna need to go with somebody else. And here's the thing about it. He worked so hard that day. He said he knew he could not leave until he got my yard edge, because that's what I told him to do. It was in the summer. It was brutally hot. He was out there all day. You can imagine how hard of a day that was. But that was not hustle. He worked really hard, but it was not hustling because it was not working smart. The way we work is we hustle. We don't work hard around here. We hustle. Where we work, a pretty common scenario that happens is an assignment will be given out and says, all right, you need to have this done by Thursday. We're very busy, and Thursday comes around, and all right, I need to do this thing by Thursday. I'm going to start on it now. I fully expect to be done with it, but something happens. Something unexpected comes up, something goes wrong, an obstacle gets in the way, it gets complicated, materials that you needed weren't ordered, and then you go to the supervisor and you say, hey, it's not done, but it's X, Y, and Z's fault. It's not my fault. And sometimes that's sufficient. Sometimes it just needs to be explained away, things come up, and that's the end of it. But because we hustle, working smart is an expectation. Leaving room for contingency, anticipating problems, to not make your plan as though everything needs to work out perfectly for you to accomplish it, that stuff's on you. And I want supervisors holding us all accountable to that expectation, because we don't just work hard, we hustle. Make sense? Okay, cool. Wanted to cover that before we appropriately continue the statement, because that's not the end of the statement. It's we hustle, God provides. The things that we are in control of, let's just do them well. We hustle for the inputs, but let's know that God is in control of the outputs. Every bit of fruitfulness is from God because we hustle, but He provides. With us, it's been very easy to see that God is in control for all of our provision, everything that He's done. Just getting to work with finances from day one, I've gotten to see this time and time again. Just overall, financially, our church doesn't make sense. We've never been able to find a church our size with the budget that we have, and yet we've had everything that we need to do the things that God has called us to do. It's just amazing that is the case. One of my favorite stories about this is just how we bought Blanding. So if you would, I'd love to just take a stroll with you, hand in hand, down memory lane and reminisce, because this story was, and just the details of it, was a clear example of God was just like, hey, hang on, guys, watch this, and see and tell Laura, this is what God provides. So, thanks, Laura, for coining that. I'm about to run through some numbers because I think numbers tell the story really well. But if you get tripped up with them, don't worry about it. Just sit back, relax, and you can just get the essence of what I'm talking about. First of all, when we're trying to acquire Blanding, the 1800 Blanding Street building, it wasn't even listed to be sold, just as a first obstacle. There was no sign out front. That wasn't listed on the MLS service. Our real estate agent had no idea it was even available. So how would we even look into it? Then a resident was riding his bike in hot Columbia, which is second obstacle. I don't know how he did it, how he rode a bike in Columbia. And he rode his bike down Blanding and saw that building and said, I wonder what is going on with that space. It doesn't look like much is happening. So he hustled and he Googled it. And he found out that it was on some random website named loopnet.com, which is a stupid website name, right? Doesn't even make any sense. Third obstacle right there. And he found out it was listed for sale for some crazy price, like $3 million. I don't remember exactly what it is. In fact, that price gets more expensive every time we tell the story. So right now it's $3 million. It was just too expensive for us. But because we hustle, we looked into it. We contacted the owner and found out the actual price was more like $1.5 million is what he wanted. Now, compared to other buildings in downtown Columbia, that was actually a pretty good deal for the amount of space that it was in downtown Columbia. And so it was something that we were pretty interested in because we've been looking for many, many years and never found anything like that. However, the problem is we still needed to put a down payment down and get a loan for it. So at the time, we only had $100,000 in our bank, and the down payment for $1.5 million is 20%. That's $300,000. Plus, we had to do renovation costs and had to do 20% for that as well. So totally $440,000 of down payments for loans. And we only had $100,000 in the bank. I may be a comedic genius, but I can't even work those numbers, guys. That is too difficult for me to even figure out. So we just stopped, right? That was the end of the story. Wrong. You guys thought we stopped. We did not. We hustled. You're learning. Good. So we went to every bank in Columbia and said, will you guys give us a loan, pretty please? And they all, every single one of them, said no, unfortunately. Steve was actually coaching me up at this time, and he was like, listen, you need to go into those banks and say, we're Midtown Fellowship, we're going to be a great client. What are you going to do to convince me to bank with you? And I was like, all right, Steve, you need to tell him that. I'm not going to tell him that. The answer is still no. I even went in there. I was like, Steve told me to tell you. And it didn't work. Answer was no all the way around. And meanwhile, we've been working with 3 different contractors to see how much renovation. Oh, banks were tripping. 3 different contractors that were just trying to get a quote and figure out what we needed to do in that space. And we ran into another problem. So we realized that the space of that building wouldn't work for what our needs were. The kids' space just would not fit for the amount of space that we actually needed. We even had a emergency pastor meeting where we put the blueprint up on a projector on a dry erase board, and we just drew walls and tried to figure it out, erase it. I mean, the best and the brightest were in that room, and we could not figure it out. And now it makes sense that we didn't figure it out. So it was at that time that God said, all right, listen, guys, I appreciate all your hard work. You guys are a bunch of geniuses, but I'm going to take it from here. So I want to say that same day, I don't know if it was the same day, but I want to say it was the same day, so I'm going to say it was the same day. I got a phone call from our realtor, and he said, just wanted you guys to be aware. So he doesn't know we're kind of cooling on the acquisition of this building because of all these problems, unsolvable problems we were encountering. Unbeknownst to him, he says, hey, just wanted you to be aware the owner of that building also owns the buildings right next door to Blanding Street. So the buildings on either side. He owns that, and it's currently operating as a auto shop occupied by his brother-in-law, but he is willing to displace him and move him to another building if we wanted to acquire those buildings as well. And so it's like, oh, of course, this would be so great. It would solve our space issue, but it's going to be more money. Money's a huge issue. How could we afford that, right? Wrong. It's going to be less money. Yeah, less money. He'd reduce the price, threw in the building. So when I got off the phone and I told everybody the update, they're all like, Chris, you're an amazing negotiator. And I was just like, well, it's a Tuesday. What can I say? Felt great. So thanks God for that. But we ran into, still had another problem. Banks were tripping. Nobody would give us a loan. And even if they did, we wouldn't have the down payment to be able to afford this. So, all right, God, let's keep rolling with this thing that you got going on. We went to our church and said, hey, church family, this is an opportunity we've got going on. Just wanted you to be aware. If we want to move on it, we got to give. And like I said before, we have the lowest dollar per attendee church that we know of, and we raised $220,000 to be able to move towards this this initiative. So yeah, that's our need. Currently in the bank, $100,000, needed $440. Boom, church gave $220. Just an amazing act of sacrificial giving to be able to move towards being able to pull this off. Still a little short though. Stupid math. So we went back to God and said, hey, remember, tell Laura, pay attention to this story right now. It's going to embody what she coined several years ago. So NBSC came to us and said, the wonderful best bank in the universe, I've done the legwork, no other planet has a better bank, NBSC, and said, instead of a 20% down payment, we're going to loan you the money, first of all, thanks Jesus, and we'll make you do a 10% down payment instead of a 20% down payment. Check out how those numbers work, not making those numbers up. And also, something even more interesting, Wes will know this, at that time, we had an internal rule where we did not want to go below $100,000 in our bank account just because that's what we needed to be able to operate smoothly. I never wanted there to be a situation where, oh, this month went down in giving, we might need to cut some things. Hey, wait on depositing your paycheck because we need to get some money to clear. I never wanted our operation to run in such a way. So we had a self-imposed rule. Our $100,000 was actually zero. So these numbers are even more beautiful when you think about it in terms of that. So this started becoming a reality. It was like, all right, this thing is working out, but we need to, get a sound system, get some chairs. We need to actually have a million different purchases to be able to operate and function inside the building, and that was going to cost a lot of money. So our need actually increased to even more money. Where was that money going to come from? Then Adam had a crazy idea. He said, God, you're so good at that. That is amazing. That is so good. He said, all right, I got an idea. Let's buy the Divine Street building and sell it. And something that you need to know why that's so crazy is we've currently been renting that facility for 3 years, and the way that we had that agreement set up is the current owners, or the owners of that building, were trying to sell it while we were renting it. And we had an agreement with them that if they ever got an offer on the building, we had first right of refusal at an agreed-upon purchase price of $600,000. So I know for a fact that nobody has even offered on that building in 3 years because we never had to exercise our right of first right of refusal. So Adam had the idea, hey, let's buy Divine Street and sell it, and here's the clincher, for more money than we paid for it. And it was just like, all right, man. And he actually just said that and left the office. And I was just like, oh, man, okay, I guess, God, I've been asking a lot of you, but, Adam wants this. It's like, it's too much, right? You want me to talk to him? I'm just going to talk to him. And God was like, no, I got an idea. Adam, through a connection at Riverside Church, exact same logo as us, if you hadn't seen it. If you got confused, said, hey, do you guys want to buy Divine Street building? And they said, yes. And that was the end of the phone call. Or actually, he said, how about we sell it to you for what we pay for it plus what we renovated the building for, which is $135,000. Do you want to buy it for that price? And they said, sure. Where do I sign? And that was the end of the actual conversation. Just an amazing situation where we're able to continue to increase our bank account while our needs increase against all odds and rational thinking. So this is just another opportunity where God's saying, no, I got you. Now, out of left field, a new problem comes in where we got an email from the owner of the building that we're renting offices at. And they said, hey, we're trying to sell the building. You guys should go ahead and find new office space, a new office situation. I was like, man, we're thinking about something else right now, but God, just want to let you know about this in case you had some free time to be doing some side work. We actually knew that the buildings that are on, Taylor Street and that warehouse on Barnwell were available this whole time at the price of $500,000. So we knew that that was an option to purchase, but it would cost $50,000 to purchase it. And that was what we were like, oh, that's what we should do. But that increased our need by $50,000. So that puts us below the $100,000 self-imposed threshold. Enter God through the form of United Way and said, hey, guys, I know you're about to buy this building on Blanding Street. It has a plot of unusable land that jets out into our property. He didn't call it unusable land. That's what we called it because, we needed to describe the part of the land which we could not use whatsoever. And so that we called it the unusable land. He said, I want to buy this unusable land for $50,000. And Adam was like, okay, that sounds good. Boom. $500,000. Just like that. So listen to our summer of 2015 schedule. This all happened in the summer. We bought Divine Street. We sold Divine Street. We bought Blanding. We sold a chunk of land to United Way. Then we bought Taylor Street. Every deal was a domino that had to fall perfectly, and nobody could back out of anything, and no issue could get held up, and nobody's finances could fall through. If anything fell through, it all fell apart. God kind of gave us a little wink that summer and was just like, I got you guys. The cherry on top was when we finally moved into our new offices after we renovated it. It was moving day. We all were carrying boxes from the moving truck, and Adam got an email on his phone from our point of contact at the office. And he said, hey, just want to let you know, it's official. You guys are kicked out of the offices. This was while we were moving in to our new building. And so for those of you that remember that day that were there, we kind of just had a moment and right then and there just said, thank you, God, for always providing for us. Who is in charge is not in question. We hustle, but God ultimately is the one that provides. Pretty amazing stuff, right? Yeah.